The invitation arrived on cream-colored paper, embossed with the Silvercrest Pack's insignia, a crescent moon wrapped in thorns. Serafina Voss stared at it for a long moment, her fingers trembling as she traced the elegant calligraphy. You are cordially invited to the mating ceremony of Alpha Cale Thornwood and his chosen Luna, Vivienne Ashford. Your presence is requested to witness this sacred union. At the bottom, in Cale's own handwriting, a single line had been added. I expect you there, Sarah. Don't disappoint me. 3 years. 3 years since he had publicly rejected her at the altar, declaring her wolf too weak, her bloodline too common to stand beside an alpha. 3 years since she had fled Silvercrest in humiliation, the laughter of the pack still ringing in her ears. And now he wanted her to watch him claim another. He wants to break you again, whispered the wounded part of her soul. He wants everyone to see how far you've fallen. Serafina should have burned the invitation, should have thrown it into the fire and forgotten Cale Thornwood ever existed. Instead, she found herself standing at the entrance of the Silvercrest pack house 3 weeks later, her heart pounding against her ribs like a caged bird. The grand hall was exactly as she remembered. Towering stone pillars draped in midnight silk, crystal chandeliers casting fractured light across hundreds of gathered wolves. The elite of every pack in the Northern Territories had come to witness the union. And there, at the center of it all, stood Cale. He was still devastatingly handsome, all sharp angles and predatory grace. His dark hair was swept back from his face, and his amber eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he surveyed his domain. Beside him, draped in white silk and diamonds, stood Vivienne Ashford, beautiful, powerful, everything Serafina was not. She actually came. The whisper slithered through the crowd like poison. Can you believe it? After what he did to her? I heard she's been living as a rogue. No pack would take her. Serafina kept her chin lifted, though each word landed like a knife between her ribs. She had dressed carefully for this. A simple black dress that hugged her slender frame, her dark hair falling in waves past her shoulders. Nothing that would draw attention. Nothing that would give them more ammunition. But Cale had already spotted her. His lips curved into a smile that held no warmth, only triumph. Serafina. He descended from the dais, the crowd parting before him like water. I wasn't sure you'd have the courage to show your face. You invited me, she replied, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. I assumed you wanted witnesses. I wanted you to witness. He leaned closer, his breath hot against her ear. I wanted you to see what a real Luna looks like, so you'd finally understand why I could never choose you. The words should have devastated her. Once, they would have. But something had changed in Serafina. During those 3 years of exile, something had hardened into steel. Is that all? She asked quietly. Cale's eyes narrowed at her lack of reaction. Before he could respond, a ripple of energy swept through the hall, something ancient and commanding that made every wolf present go still. The massive oak doors at the entrance swung open. A man stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the moonlight. He was tall, powerfully built, with shoulders that seemed to block out the sky. As he stepped into the light, Serafina heard the collective gasp of the crowd. Silver-white hair fell past his shoulders, stark against skin the color of burnished bronze. His features were aristocratic, almost cruel in their beauty. High cheekbones, a strong jaw, lips that looked carved from marble. But it was his eyes that made her breath catch. They were the color of molten steel, swirling with an inner light that spoke of power beyond anything she had ever witnessed. And those eyes were fixed directly on her. Who? Cale's voice cracked. Who dares interrupt? Silence. The word was soft, barely above a whisper, yet it cracked through the hall like thunder. Every wolf in the room dropped to their knees instinctively, including Kyle. Every wolf except Seraphina. She stood frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe, as the stranger walked toward her. The crowd parted around him like frightened sheep, their heads bowed so low their foreheads nearly touched the floor. "Do you know who that is?" Someone whimpered from the ground. "The Alpha King," another voice breathed. "Caspian Fenrir, the king of all wolves." The Alpha King stopped directly in front of Seraphina. This close, she could see the faint scars that traced his jaw, could smell the wild scent of pine and winter storms that clung to his skin. "You," he said, and his voice resonated through her very bones. "You're the one." Before Seraphina could respond, before she could even form a coherent thought, the Alpha King did something that would be whispered about for generations. He knelt before her. The collective shock in the room was palpable. Wolves cried out in disbelief. Someone actually fainted. Kale made a strangled sound of pure horror. "My king," Seraphina whispered, her voice barely audible. "What are you doing?" Caspian Fenrir, ruler of the 7 territories, looked up at her with those devastating eyes of molten steel. "I've been searching for you," he said, "for over 200 years. 3 years earlier, the rejection ceremony was supposed to be a mating ceremony." Seraphina had spent months preparing for this day. The day Cale Thornwood would finally claim her as his Luna before the entire Silvercrest pack. She had grown up beside him, loved him since they were children running wild through the forest. When her wolf had recognized him as her fated mate at 18, she had wept with joy. But standing at the altar now, draped in white silk, she saw something in Cale's eyes that turned her, blood to ice. "I, Alpha Cale Thornwood," he began, his voice carrying across the assembled pack, "do hereby reject—" The word hit her like a physical blow. "Seraphina Voss is my fated mate." Gasps erupted through the crowd. Seraphina felt her legs buckle, felt strong hands catch her before she hit the ground. Her wolf howled inside her chest, a sound of pure agony that she barely managed to keep from escaping her lips. "Cale," she breathed. "Why?" He looked down at her with something like pity. "You're weak, Sarah. Your wolf is barely more than a pup. How could I let someone like you stand beside me? How could I let you mother my heirs?" He gestured to someone in the crowd. "Vivian's wolf is twice as strong as yours. Her bloodline is pure. She will give me the legacy I deserve." Vivian Ashford stepped forward, her smile sharp as broken glass. She had been Seraphina's friend once. Now she looked at her like she was something scraped off the bottom of a shoe. "Don't take it personally," Vivian murmured as she passed. "Some of us are simply meant for greater things." The rest of that night existed only in fragments, running through the forest, her wolf too devastated to shift. The pack border markers flying past as she fled into the wilderness, the sound of laughter fading behind her. For 3 years, Seraphina survived as a rogue. She learned to hunt alone, to sleep with one eye open, to trust no one. She took odd jobs in human towns, waitressing, cleaning, anything to keep herself fed. Her wolf, once vibrant and eager, grew quiet and withdrawn, wounded by the rejection in ways that might never fully heal. She told herself she was stronger now, harder, that she didn't need a pack, didn't need a mate, and didn't need anyone. Then the invitation had arrived, and all her carefully constructed armor had cracked. Now, standing in the Silvercrest Great Hall with the Alpha King kneeling at her feet, Seraphina wondered if she had finally lost her mind. "Get up," she whispered urgently. "Please. You can't. This isn't—" "Do you feel it?" Caspian asked, ignoring her protests. His steel-gray gaze searched her face with an intensity that made her skin burn. The pull. The recognition. Tell me you feel it too. And the terrifying truth was, she did. From the moment he had walked through those doors, something inside her had awakened. Something that had nothing to do with Cale or the rejection or the 3 years of pain. Her wolf, silent for so long, was suddenly alert, straining toward this stranger with desperate recognition. Mate, her wolf whispered. True mate. That's impossible, Serafina breathed. I was rejected by. A rejection can be broken, Caspian said, rising smoothly to his feet. He towered over her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. A fated bond can be severed, but a soul bond, that is eternal. That cannot be rejected, cannot be broken, and cannot be denied. Soul bond? Her voice cracked. There's no such thing. There is. His hand rose slowly, giving her time to pull away, and when she didn't, his fingers brushed her cheek with impossible gentleness. It happens once in 1,000 generations. 2 souls created from the same star, separated at birth, destined to find each other across any distance, any lifetime. Serafina shook her head frantically. You've made a mistake. I'm nobody. I'm a rogue with a weak wolf and common blood. You are mine. The words were soft, but absolute. And I have waited 2 centuries to find you. The chaos that erupted in the wake of the Alpha King's declaration was absolute. Kyle had somehow found his feet, his face a mask of barely contained rage. My king, he said, and even that title seemed to pain him. Surely there's been some misunderstanding. This woman, this rogue, cannot possibly be. Cannot possibly be what? Caspian turned slowly, and Serafina watched Cale shrink back despite himself. Choose your next words very carefully, Alpha Thornwood. She was my fated mate, Cale pressed on, though his voice had lost its earlier confidence. I rejected her. Her wolf is weak, barely functional. She is not fit to be anyone's Luna, much less. You rejected your fated mate? Caspian's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. You broke a sacred bond for what? Power? Status? I did what was best for my pack. You did what was best for your ego. The Alpha King took a single step toward Cale, and the younger Alpha stumbled backward, nearly falling over his own feet. I've ruled the 7 territories for 300 years. I've seen Alphas rise and fall, empires crumble to dust. And in all that time, I have never witnessed anything as pathetic as a wolf who would reject his own soul for the sake of appearances. Vivian had gone deathly pale beside the altar, her earlier smugness completely evaporated. My king, she attempted, her voice trembling, the ceremony, our mating, will not be taking place. Caspian didn't even look at her. Not tonight, not ever. A wolf who would steal another's mate is no Luna. She is a vulture feeding on carrion. The insult landed like a slap. Vivian's face crumpled, and for a moment, Serafina felt an unexpected pang of something like sympathy. Then she remembered the smirk on Vivian's face 3 years ago, the casual cruelty of her parting words, and the sympathy evaporated. Caspian turned back to Serafina, and his expression transformed entirely, from cold fury to something almost tender. Come, he said quietly. You don't belong here. Serafina looked around at the sea of hostile faces, at Cale's humiliated rage, at the pack that had thrown her away like garbage. I don't understand what's happening. I know. Caspian offered his hand. Let me explain. Away from here. Away from them. Her wolf was practically clawing at her consciousness, desperate to go with him, to be near him. But Serafina had learned to be cautious, to question everything. Why should I trust you? she asked. I don't know you. I don't know anything about you except that you're powerful and you say impossible things. Something flickered in those steel-gray eyes. Respect, perhaps, or approval. You're right to be cautious, he said. You've been hurt by wolves who should have protected you. Why would you believe another? He lowered his hand but didn't step away. I won't force you to come with me, he continued. I won't command it or compel it. But I am asking, one wolf to another, one lonely soul to another, give me the chance to prove myself. One night. If after that you want to leave, to never see me again, I will let you go. One night, Seraphina heard herself say. And then, I decide. Then you decide, he agreed. She took his hand. The moment their skin touched, Seraphina gasped. A current of electricity shot up her arm and straight into her heart, igniting something that had been dark and cold for 3 long years. Her wolf howled, not in pain this time, but in pure, unbridled joy. Caspian's fingers tightened around hers and she saw his carefully controlled expression crack for just a moment, revealing something raw and desperate beneath. You feel it, he breathed. Don't you? She couldn't deny it, couldn't pretend. Yes, she whispered. I feel it. He led her toward the doors and the crowd parted once more. But as they passed the altar, Cale's voice rang out one final time. You're making a mistake, Sarah. He'll see what you really are eventually. Weak. Worthless. Nothing. Seraphina stopped. For 3 years, those words had echoed in her mind. For 3 years, she had believed them. But something about Caspian's presence, about the way he looked at her like she was precious beyond measure, gave her the strength she had been searching for all along. She turned to face her former mate. You rejected me because you thought I was weak, she said, her voice clear and steady. But weakness isn't about the strength of your wolf or the purity of your bloodline. Weakness is choosing cruelty over courage. Weakness is breaking sacred bonds because you're afraid of what others might think. She smiled, and it was not a kind smile. I survived 3 years as a rogue, alone, hunted, abandoned. I survived you. So tell me, Kyle, who's really the weak one here? She didn't wait for his answer. Caspian's personal carriage was unlike anything Seraphina had ever seen. It was carved from obsidian wood so dark it seemed to absorb the moonlight, pulled by 4 massive wolves who shifted into human form only long enough to bow to their king before resuming their positions. Inside, the seats were upholstered in silver velvet, and strange luminescent crystals cast a soft glow across the intimate space. Where are we going? Seraphina asked as the carriage began to move. My territory, Iron Howl Keep. Caspian sat across from her, his massive frame somehow making the spacious carriage feel small. It's a 3-day journey. We'll stop at an inn tonight. 3 days? Seraphina's eyes widened. I can't just disappear for 3 days. She stopped, realizing she had nothing. No home, no job, no pack waiting for her return. I suppose I don't have anything, she finished quietly. You have me. The words were simple, stated as fact rather than sentiment. And once we reach the keep, you'll have everything you could ever want or need. Seraphina studied him in the crystal light. You said you've been searching for 200 years. How is that possible? Wolves don't live that long. Normal wolves don't. Caspian's gaze held hers steadily. I am not a normal wolf. Then what are you? For a long moment, he was silent. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy with centuries of memory. I was born in a time before the packs were divided, when wolves roamed free across all the lands. My mother was a healer, my father a warrior. They were good people, kind, honest, beloved by their pack. His jaw tightened. They were murdered when I was 7 years old. Hunters who believed wolves were demons in disguise. Serafina's heart clenched. I'm sorry. I swore vengeance, he continued. I trained. I fought. I killed. By the time I was 20, I had united the scattered packs under my rule. By 30, I had established the 7 territories and brought peace to our kind. A bitter smile crossed his face. And somewhere along the way, I became something more than wolf, something less than God. My lifespan extended. My power grew. But the one thing I wanted most, a mate, a family, someone to share eternity with, remained forever out of reach. 300 years, Serafina murmured. And you've been searching all that time? I tried once before. A Luna named Isadora, 50 years at my side. His expression darkened. But she wasn't my soulmate. The bond between us was political, practical, never what either of us truly needed. When I ended it, she did not take it well. He shook his head. Since then, I've searched alone. 200 years of hoping. The intensity of his gaze made her look away, heat rising to her cheeks. I still don't understand why me. There must be thousands of wolves more worthy. Worthiness has nothing to do with it. Caspian leaned forward, and suddenly he was close, so close she could count the flecks of lighter gray in his eyes. The soul bond isn't about strength or status or bloodline. It's about resonance. 2 souls that vibrate at the same frequency, that recognize each other across time and space. But my wolf is weak, she whispered. Kyle was right about that much. I can barely shift, and when I do, your wolf isn't weak. His voice sharpened. Your wolf has been suppressed. What? Caspian reached out, his fingers hovering over her heart without touching. May I? Serafina nodded, not trusting her voice. The moment his palm pressed against her chest, she felt it, a surge of energy unlike anything she had experienced. It rushed through her like liquid fire, awakening nerves she didn't know she had, illuminating dark corners of her consciousness that had been sealed away. And then she heard it. Her wolf's voice, strong and clear for the first time in years. Finally. Finally, someone sees. Finally, someone knows. There's something inside you, Caspian said, his expression darkening. A binding. Someone has placed a seal on your wolf, forcing her into dormancy. A seal? Serafina's blood ran cold. Why would anyone? That is what we need to discover. His hand fell away, and she immediately felt the loss of his warmth. But I promise you this, Serafina, whatever was done to you, whoever hurt you, they will answer for it. The carriage continued through the night, carrying her away from everything she had known and toward a future she couldn't begin to imagine. They stopped at a remote inn nestled at the edge of the Blackwood forest, where the trees grew so thick that moonlight barely penetrated the canopy. The innkeeper, a grizzled wolf with a scarred face, took one look at Caspian and nearly collapsed in reverence. My king, he stammered, bowing so low his forehead brushed the wooden floor. We are honored beyond measure. Please, our finest rooms. Anything you require? Privacy, Caspian said simply, and discretion. Of course, of course. The innkeeper's eyes darted to Serafina with obvious curiosity, but he was wise enough not to ask questions. Their rooms were adjacent, connected by a shared sitting area with a crackling fireplace. Serafina stood by the window, watching the shadows dance between the ancient trees, acutely aware of Caspian's presence behind her. The fire crackled and popped, casting warm light across the rustic furnishings, but she couldn't shake the chill that had settled into her bones. You should rest, he said quietly. Tomorrow will be demanding. I can't sleep. She turned to face him. My mind won't stop spinning. Everything I thought I knew about myself, About my wolf? About my entire life? It's all been a lie. Caspian moved closer, stopping an arm's length away. Not a lie. A deception. But not of your making. Who would bind my wolf? The question that had been burning in her chest finally escaped. And why? Such bindings require immense power and intimate access. It would have to be someone close to you, someone you trusted. Seraphina's mind raced through the possibilities. Her parents had died when she was young. A rogue attack, she'd been told. She had been raised by her grandmother until the old woman passed when Seraphina was 16. My grandmother, she breathed. She was a healer. She had power, though she rarely used it. Would she have bound you? Never. She loved me more than anything. But even as she said it, doubt crept in. Unless she was trying to protect me from something. Caspian's expression sharpened. Protection bindings exist, but they're rare. They're used to hide someone's true nature from those who might exploit it. Hide me from who? Before he could answer, a howl split the night. Close, urgent, and unmistakably a warning. Caspian's entire demeanor transformed in an instant. The tender concern vanished, replaced by the lethal focus of a predator. Stay here, he commanded, moving toward the door. What's happening? Hunters. The word was a growl. They've found us. And if they're here for me? The words tumbled out before she could stop them. You said someone bound my wolf to hide me. What if these hunters know what I really am? Something flickered in his eyes. Fear, she realized. The Alpha King, ancient and powerful beyond measure, was afraid. Not for himself. For her. Then it's even more important that you stay hidden. His hands gripped her shoulders, firm but gentle. I cannot lose you, Seraphina. Not when I've only just found you. Please. 1 hour, she whispered. If you're not back in 1 hour, I'm coming after you. He pressed his lips to her forehead, a fleeting touch that burned like a brand, and then he was gone, shifting mid-stride into a massive wolf with fur the color of winter storms. From the window, Seraphina watched shadows move through the forest, 8 figures with crossbows and silver blades. Caspian crashed into them like a force of nature, but they were prepared, driving him back, herding him away from the inn, away from her. And then she saw her, a woman standing at the edge of the battle, watching with calm detachment, hair the color of spun gold and eyes that gleamed with inhuman light. The woman turned, as if sensing Seraphina's gaze, and smiled. Found you, that smile seemed to say. Finally. The golden-haired woman walked toward the inn. A voice drifted through the door, melodic and cold. Open the door and I'll tell you everything. Who you really are, why your wolf was bound, what you're truly capable of. Or stay hidden and watch Caspian die trying to protect a secret you don't even understand. Through the window, Seraphina saw Caspian fighting, slowing, blood matting his silver fur. He was losing because of her, because he was protecting her. She opened the door. The golden-haired woman stepped inside. I know your grandmother placed that binding when you were 3 years old, right after your parents were murdered. I know it wasn't a rogue attack that killed them. It was an assassination. I know your bloodline is one of the oldest and most powerful in wolf history. Who are you? Isadora Vane, former Luna of the Shadowfang Pack. Former mate of the Alpha King. Her lips twisted into something ugly. You're not just his soulmate, little wolf. You're the last surviving heir of the Lunaris bloodline, the Moon-Blessed, the one prophesied to either unite all wolves under a new era of peace or destroy them entirely. The Lunaris bloodline died, out centuries ago, Seraphina protested, her voice shaking. That's what everyone was meant to believe. Your grandmother went to extraordinary lengths to hide you, changed your name, bound your powers, erased every trace of your true heritage. She knew that if anyone discovered a Lunaris heir still lived, they would stop at nothing to control you. Or kill me, Serafina whispered, the pieces clicking into place with horrifying clarity. Or kill you, Isadora agreed. Which brings us to why I'm here. Serafina's mind raced. Caspian had mentioned Isadora, 50 years together before their bond withered. He'd said she hadn't taken it well. Now, standing face to face with this ageless, beautiful, terrifying woman, Serafina understood just how much of an understatement that had been. He ended things with you, she said slowly, understanding dawning. Isadora's beautiful face contorted with rage. He discarded me. I gave him 50 years of loyalty, of service, of devotion, and he cast me aside because I wasn't his precious soulmate. She spat the words like venom. He said he couldn't love me the way I deserved, that it wouldn't be fair to either of us, as if fairness had anything to do with it. So this is revenge. This is justice. Isadora's grip tightened until Serafina gasped in pain. He took everything from me, my position, my pack, my purpose. Now I'm going to take everything from him, starting with you. I won't help you hurt him. You won't have a choice. Isadora's hand rose, fingers glowing with an eerie silver light. Once I break the binding, your power will overwhelm you. You won't be able to control it. Not without training, not without guidance. And I'll be right there to offer both. By the time Caspian realizes what's happened, you'll be mine completely. The light in Isadora's hand intensified, and Serafina felt something deep inside her begin to crack. Like ice breaking over a frozen lake, like chains shattering after decades of rust. Pain exploded through her body. It was as if her very bones were being reforged, her blood set ablaze, her soul torn apart and reassembled. She collapsed to her knees, barely aware of Isadora standing over her. Let go, a voice whispered inside her, not her wolf's voice, but something older, vaster. Stop fighting. Let us be whole. The binding shattered, and Serafina erupted. Light poured from her body, not silver like Isadora's magic, but pure gold, warm as sunlight, bright as the full moon at its peak. It filled the room, spilled out the windows, and illuminated the entire forest in a blinding flash. Isadora stumbled back with a shriek, shielding her eyes. When the light finally faded, Serafina stood transformed. She felt everything now. Every heartbeat in the forest, every breath of wind, every whisper of life within 100 miles. Her wolf prowled inside her consciousness, no longer a prisoner but a partner, fierce and ancient and gloriously awake. The inn door burst open and Caspian crashed through in human form, bloody and battered but very much alive. His eyes found her immediately, widening at the sight of her transformation. Serafina, he breathed. I'm still me, she said softly, reaching up to touch his face. Just more. His arms wrapped around her, crushing her against his chest. I thought I'd lost you. When I felt the binding break, when I saw that light, I thought Isadora had destroyed you. She freed me. Serafina pulled back to meet his eyes. She didn't mean to, but she did. Isadora had recovered her composure, though her eyes still held a flicker of fear. This isn't over. Not by a long way. She has the power now, but she doesn't know how to use it, and when she loses control, and she will, I'll be waiting. Her form dissolved into shadows, scattering into the night like smoke on the wind. They reached Ironhowl Keep on the evening of the third day. The Alpha King's fortress rose from the mountains like something carved by the gods themselves, towers of black stone reaching toward the clouds, walls thick enough to withstand any siege, and everywhere, the banners of his reign snapping in the highland wind. Seraphina had spent the journey learning to control her newly awakened abilities. It was exhausting, frustrating work. The power inside her was vast and wild, eager to burst free at the slightest provocation. Twice she had accidentally set fires with nothing but her emotions. Once, she had made every wolf within a mile radius howl in unison without meaning to. "It will get easier," Caspian assured her after each incident. "You're learning to walk after a lifetime of crawling. Give yourself grace." But she saw the worry in his eyes when he thought she wasn't looking. He knew, as she did, that Isadora's warning had been more than empty threats. If Seraphina couldn't master this power, it would master her. Now, as they passed through the keep's massive iron gates, she felt hundreds of eyes turn toward them. Word of her existence had clearly spread. "They're staring," she murmured. "They're curious." Caspian's hand found hers, intertwining their fingers. "Most of them have never seen a Lunaris wolf. They thought your kind were myths." "Am I going to have to prove myself?" "You're going to have to survive." His grip tightened. "Wolf politics are complicated. As my soulmate, you have certain protections. But as an unknown quantity with unprecedented power, you also have targets on your back." The Great Hall of Ironhall Keep was designed to intimidate. Massive pillars carved with the history of wolfkind lined the walls. A throne of twisted silver sat on a raised dais, flanked by torches that never seemed to flicker. And gathered before that throne, arranged by rank and territory, stood the leadership of the 7 territories, the most powerful wolves in existence. They had come to see her. Alpha King. A woman stepped forward from the assembled crowd. She was striking, with dark skin and close-cropped hair, her bearing that of a warrior queen. "You've kept us waiting 3 days for an explanation. We've heard rumors of a Lunaris heir, of an attack by Isadora Vane, of soul bonds and prophecies. The territories demand answers. And they shall have them, Alpha Nyla." Caspian released Seraphina's hand and ascended to his throne. "But first, allow me to introduce Seraphina Voss, my soul-bonded mate, and the last heir of the Lunaris bloodline." The hall erupted. Shouts of disbelief, cries of alarm, and underneath it all, a current of fear so palpable that Seraphina could taste it on her tongue. These ancient wolves, these leaders of thousands, were afraid of her. "This is impossible," growled an older man with a braided gray beard. "The Lunaris line was exterminated during the Purge Wars. Every heir was hunted down and destroyed. Clearly, one survived." Caspian's voice cut through the chaos. Her grandmother bound her powers and hid her identity. She lived as a common wolf until 3 days ago, when Isadora Vane broke the binding in an attempt to weaponize her. Then perhaps destruction is the wisest course. The voice came from the shadows at the back of the hall. A thin, pale man emerged, eyes like polished obsidian, teeth that had been filed to points. "The Lunaris wolves were too powerful to control. That's why our ancestors eliminated them. Why would we allow such a threat to exist again?" Seraphina's blood ran cold. "Careful, Alpha Mordecai." Caspian's voice dropped to a dangerous growl. "You're speaking of my mate." "I'm speaking of the safety of our kind." Mordecai smiled, revealing those unsettling teeth. "Sentiment is a luxury, my king. If this girl cannot be controlled, she must be eliminated before she becomes everything the prophecies warned about." The hall had gone deathly silent. Every eye moved between Caspian on his throne, Mordecai in the shadows, and Seraphina standing alone in the center of it all. The prophecy speaks of two paths, Mordecai continued, his voice slithering through the silence. Unity or destruction. And history shows us which path the Lunaris wolves have always chosen. History also shows us that fear makes monsters of us all. Alpha Nyla stepped forward, positioning herself between Mordecai and Seraphina. I've heard enough talk of elimination. This woman has committed no crime. She was hidden against her will, awakened against her will, and now stands accused against her will. Gratitude surged through Seraphina. At least one wolf in this hall was willing to give her a chance. Thank you, she said quietly. Nyla glanced back at her with something that might have been respect. Don't thank me yet. I'm not defending you out of kindness. I'm defending the principle that wolves are not condemned for what they might become. Her eyes hardened. But make no mistake. If you prove to be a threat, I will be the first to put you down. Noted, Seraphina said. Caspian rose from his throne. Enough debate. The matter is settled. Seraphina is my soul-bonded mate. Any attack on her is an attack on me. Any threat against her is treason against the crown. His steel-gray eyes found Mordecai's black ones. Does anyone wish to test that declaration? The silence stretched. Finally, Mordecai bowed his head, a shallow, mocking gesture. As my king commands. But as he retreated into the shadows, Seraphina caught the look in his eyes. This wasn't over. She had made an enemy tonight. One who wouldn't rest until she was destroyed. That night, Seraphina stood on the balcony of her chambers, staring out at the moonlit mountains. The keep sprawled below her, torches flickering in the darkness, wolves moving through the shadows on patrol. You should sleep. Caspian's voice came from behind her. I can't. She didn't turn around. Every time I close my eyes, I feel it. This power, churning inside me like a storm. It wants out. It wants to do something. She heard him approach, felt the warmth of his body as he stopped just behind her. When I first came into my power, he said quietly, I destroyed an entire village, not on purpose. I lost control during a nightmare, and when I woke, everything within a mile was ash. Seraphina finally turned. What did you do? I ran. I hid. I spent 50 years alone in the wilderness, convinced I was too dangerous to be around anyone. His eyes held centuries of pain. It was the loneliest time of my existence. What changed? I realized that isolation wasn't protection. It was surrender. The power didn't diminish because I ran from it. It only grew more volatile. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. You can't outrun what you are, Seraphina. You can only learn to live with it. And if I can't? She whispered. If I lose control and hurt someone? Hurt you? Then we face that together. His hand cradled her cheek. I'm not going anywhere. Not now. Not ever. The soul bond pulsed between them, warm and certain. I don't deserve you, she said. That's not for you to decide. He leaned closer, his forehead resting against hers. You are my mate, Seraphina. My soul, my heart. Whatever comes next, we face it as one. 3 weeks passed at Iron Howl Keep. 3 weeks of training, of learning to harness the golden fire that burned inside her. 3 weeks of growing closer to her mate, their bond deepening with every shared glance, every moment of vulnerability. But they had not completed the bond. Not yet. It has to be your choice, Caspian had told her. The claiming bite is forever. Once given, it cannot be undone. She was certain, more certain than she had ever been about anything. But something held her back, some unfinished business that gnawed at the edges of her consciousness. Kyle. You're thinking about him again, Caspian said one morning in the training yard. I need to go back. To Silvercrest. For closure. I can't move forward while part of me is still trapped in the past. The 7 territories are holding a summit next week. All the alphas will gather to formally recognize our bond and your status as Luna. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Silvercrest will be required to attend. Seraphina's heart skipped. Kyle will be there? Kyle, Vivienne, and every wolf who witnessed your humiliation 3 years ago. Would you like to return the favor? The Summit of Territories was held at the Moon Hall, an ancient amphitheater carved into the heart of the Silverwood Mountains. Seraphina stood in the preparation chambers, staring at her reflection in the mirror. The woman who looked back was almost unrecognizable. Gone was the timid, broken creature who had fled Silvercrest in disgrace. In her place stood someone regal, powerful, and luminous. Her dark hair had been woven with threads of silver and gold. Her gown, a gift from Caspian, was the deep blue of a midnight sky, embroidered with constellations that seemed to shift and shimmer with her movements. And at her throat, a collar of moonstones that pulsed gently with her heartbeat. She looked like a Luna. She looked like a queen. The amphitheater was filled to capacity when Seraphina emerged. Thousands of wolves from every territory had gathered, and there, in the section reserved for the Silvercrest delegation, sat Cale Thornwood. One by one, the alphas rose to speak. Ironmaw accepts. Frostpeak accepts. Shadowvale accepts. Stormridge accepts. Alpha Nyla stood. Thornwall accepts, and pledges our warriors to defend the Luna against all threats. Mordecai rose. Night Hollow abstains. Finally, only one alpha remained. Cale stood slowly. Silvercrest accepts. But Seraphina wasn't finished. Wait. Her voice cut through the amphitheater like a blade. Before we proceed, there's something I need to say. She walked until she stood directly below Cale's seat. 3 years ago, I stood before you in a white dress, ready to pledge my life to a man I thought loved me. Instead, I was humiliated, rejected, cast out like garbage because my wolf wasn't strong enough, my bloodline wasn't pure enough, my worth wasn't great enough. She let the golden light bloom from her skin. I spent 3 years believing you were right. 3 years hating myself, questioning everything I was. And then I learned the truth. My wolf wasn't weak, Cale. She was bound, sealed away by my grandmother to protect me from wolves who would have killed me for my bloodline. The bloodline you dismissed as common is actually one of the oldest and most powerful in our history. She smiled, and it was not a kind smile. So thank you. Cale blinked. Thank me? If you hadn't rejected me, I would have spent my whole life as your shadow, never knowing what I truly was. Your cruelty set me free. She turned to face the crowd, her voice rising. Everything he meant as an insult became my salvation. He called me weak. I became powerful beyond his comprehension. He said I wasn't fit to be a Luna. I became Luna to the Alpha King himself. He tried to break me, and instead, he forged me into something unbreakable. The amphitheater exploded with cheers. She leaned close to Kyle, her voice dropping to a whisper. I used to dream about making you suffer the way you made me suffer. But standing here now, looking at what you've become, you're not worth the effort. You're just a small, scared man who couldn't recognize love when it was standing right in front of him. She glanced at Vivienne, pale and trembling beside him. Good luck with that one. You deserve each other. Then she turned her back on them both and walked away. Caspian met her halfway, his eyes blazing with pride. That was magnificent. I'm ready now, she said, to complete the bond, to be yours completely, to let you be mine. Seraphina, are you certain? This isn't because of Cale or the ceremony. This is because of you. She rose on her toes, bringing her lips close to his ear. I love you, Caspian Fenrir. I think I've loved you since the moment you knelt at my feet in that horrible hall. And I don't want to wait another moment to be your mate. The claiming ritual was performed before the assembled territories. Caspian's teeth found the junction of her neck and shoulder, the same spot where wolves had marked their mates since the dawn of time. The pain was sharp but brief, quickly overwhelmed by a flood of sensation so intense that Seraphina cried out. The soul bond exploded into something transcendent. She felt Caspian's consciousness merge with hers, 300 years of memory, of loneliness, of desperate hope. She felt his love, vast as an ocean, deep as the roots of mountains, and she felt his relief, so profound it brought tears to her eyes. Finally, his thoughts whispered through the bond. Finally, I'm home. We're home, she corrected. Together. When she opened her eyes, the amphitheater was bathed in golden light, her power responding to the completion of the bond, blessing everyone present with its warmth. Behold your Luna, Caspian announced, his voice rough with emotion. Moon-blessed, soul-bonded, mine. Luna! The cry rose from thousands of throats. Luna! 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 Later, as the celebration continued around them, Seraphina stood on a balcony overlooking the Silverwood Mountains. The moon hung full and bright above, and she could feel its power singing through her veins. Caspian appeared beside her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Any regrets? He asked. Only that it took so long to find you. She leaned back into his warmth. What happens now? Now we have forever. To rule, to protect, to love. His arms tightened. Isadora is still out there. Mordecai will continue to scheme. There will be challenges, threats, enemies who want to tear us apart. Let them try. Seraphina turned in his arms, meeting those steel-gray eyes that had become her whole world. I spent 3 years surviving alone. I think I can handle a few power-hungry wolves. You won't be alone ever again, he promised. Whatever comes, we face it together. Together, she agreed. And as the moon rose higher over the mountains, blessing the newly bonded mates with its ancient light, Seraphina finally understood the truth her grandmother had tried to protect her from, and the truth she had discovered for herself. Power wasn't about strength or bloodline or dominance. Power was about rising from the ashes of your worst moments. Power was about transforming pain into purpose. Power was about finding the people who saw your worth when everyone else was blind. She had been broken, rejected, cast aside, and she had become legendary. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed Seraphina's story. If you'd like to hear more tales of love, redemption, and supernatural romance, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Your support means the world to me. Until next time.